I'm so tempted to do this in my blanket because I am just so ill. I just want to make the point of saying that I don't intend for this to sound like I am being a horrible person. I don't want to upset anybody in any way. This is just some thoughts that I've been having recently that I wanted to share. At the start of February this year, George R.R. Martin wrote a really long blog post basically saying that the next Game of Thrones book, Winds of Winter, would not be out before season 6 of Game of Thrones. And this upset a lot of book fans because for them they'd had this joy for 5 years of seeing their favourite series, their favourite books be turned into a TV show. But because of this delay with the release of Winds of Winter, it meant that book fans were going to get spoiled for the books by the TV show. So naturally, a lot of people weren't happy, which is what George R.R. Martin addressed in this blog post. He was really honest about it, and he talked about why the book isn't finished, the stage that the book was at, the fact that he'd missed all of these deadlines, and that the publisher had given him all of these opportunities of, they'd even suggested moving other releases around so that they could get the book out before the TV show. As you know, we are towards the end of the year now and the book is still not finished as far as I'm aware. But I feel that this blog post was so important because I think that a lot of authors don't talk openly enough about the struggles. I feel that a lot of authors will laugh off about how hard it was, but nobody really sits down and honestly says how much of a hard job writing actually is. I'm just going to share with you a few quotes that I picked out from the blog post. You can blame my travels, or my blog posts, or the distractions of my other projects, and whatever, but maybe all that had an impact. You can blame my age, and maybe that had an impact too. But if truth be told, sometimes the writing goes well, and sometimes it doesn't. I won't make excuses. There are no excuses. No one else is to blame. I tried, and I'm still trying. More recently, John Green did a video talking about his failure in living up to The Fault in Our Stars. As I'm sure you're probably aware, The Fault in Our Stars was a best-selling book. It was made into a Hollywood film that did really well. However, the aftermath of that has left him feeling not too great. And in this video, he talked about the fact that it has been 5 or 6 years since The Fault in Our Stars came out, and the pressure that he has felt to not only write another book, but write another book that is seen as good as, if not better than his previous. He even talked in his video about how he gave up on writing for a year and focused on all of his other projects that he has going on. He'd started stories, he'd scrapped them, started them, scrapped them, and then he took that really long break and then came back to writing. And he again expressed the importance in his video of how we need to talk about failure more. People always talk about the successes and how the failures are seen as the kind of stepping stones to that success. But he said we need to take more time to talk about the fact that these failures do exist. This is a quote that I took from his video. I don't know if I'll ever publish another book, and if I do, I don't know whether people will like it. I know they probably won't like it as much as The Fault in Our Stars. I hope I finish the book I'm working on. I hope you like it, but I don't know. I want to make the point that readers are wonderful things. The fact that communities and friendships are built over the love for the same fictional world or fictional society or group of characters, and the fact that people can find themselves within certain characters in certain books. And it makes me so happy that over the past 2 years I have found this community of people who are just as passionate about books as I am. But in being so passionate, are we at the same time inadvertently putting more pressure on our favourite authors? And I am not at all innocent here in the slightest. I am very guilty of tweeting authors mainly V. Schwab. Recently, Alwyn Hamilton, who has been working on the sequel to Rebel of the Sands, which was her debut novel. I have frequently in the past tweeted them when they've been talking about the writing process for their books, being like, I can't wait to read it, I need it now, I need this book, I've just finished it and I need the new one now, I need it now. But at the same time, it's made me think recently with things like John Green, about how I am probably not the only person doing that. If an author has 100 people, for example, all tweeting them at the same time, saying those same things, it's putting more pressure on that author than they already have, because of course they have deadlines, of course they're writing as much as they physically can. For example, V. Schwab was on the book tour for A Gathering of Shadows, which is the second book in the Darker Shade of Magic series. She was on tour for that book, and while she was on tour, going around the country, doing all of these signings, meeting all of her fans, she still had to average 2,000 words a day to meet her deadline. And I guess the fact that so many authors are starting to be more open, V. Schwab especially is a fantastic person for openly talking on Twitter about how much of a struggle writing is. She doesn't hold back. She has so many tweets about how hard the process is, and I admire the fact that there are some authors who are starting to be more honest about how hard writing is, because obviously we know how hard it is, but from a writing point of view, I don't think I could cope with that. I think it's great that authors are talking about this, because I, for example, look at people like Sarah J. Maas, who is a writing machine and wrote like 3 or 4 books this year, and you just think, oh well, clearly they're not struggling, but we don't know how often she's probably sat there crying over a laptop because she hasn't been able to write anything that day, or everything she's written she thought was rubbish. We don't know that, and I think there needs to be more of a discussion about the pressure that authors have, because I feel that when they're asked questions about it, they kind of brush it off and say, well, it is hard, but they don't talk about how hard it is. For example, J.K. Rowling keeps coming back to Harry Potter, whether it's new material on Pottermore, these ebooks, or Cursed Child. No matter what she's done, she's always coming back to Harry Potter. And she had so much pressure on her when she wrote her first book after Harry Potter that she went under a different name so that she could write freely in a different genre without those books being compared to Harry Potter. I'm not going to mention her pseudonym, you all probably know it, but out of respect I'm not going to say what it is. That's a different discussion video. These thoughts that I've been having that I hope are coming across coherently in this video, I spoke to a friend about it because I was like, you know, am I a bad person? My writer friend Jenny got back to me and straight away said that she completely agreed with me, but that the pressure that authors face isn't just solely focused on the aspect that I've been thinking about. So that she thinks it goes across the board, especially when it comes to things like shipping, where people have characters they want to get together with other characters, and that may happen or it may not happen, and she's seen a lot of people be quite aggressive to the authors when, for whatever reason, that pairing didn't happen. And she said she's even seen it with character deaths, authors getting abused because of these characters that they've killed off in their books. And she was saying about how, imagine if you had all of those people, so that 100 for example, all yelling at you because they feel that you made the wrong decision in your book. Can you imagine the pressure to come back from that? And I think it's why a lot of authors actively don't get involved in their own communities, because they don't want to see those pairings that people prefer. They don't want to see people writing fan fiction about scenes in their books and how they should have gone. Of course, everyone has the rights to their own opinions. I don't control anything you do the same way that you don't control anything that I do. I just think that maybe the way forward is to be more respectful, you know, have those thoughts, have those feelings about character deaths or pairings, but don't actively tell the authors about them. The same way that if you were a book blogger or booktuber, you wouldn't tag the author in that bad review, because then that would upset them. Because as a writer myself, I'm having a lot of people asking, is your book finished? When is it going to be finished? How far into it are you? How much do you have left to write? Have you started sending it out to publishers yet? Have you started looking at agents? Do you have an editor yet? And that, on a small scale, I find so annoying and puts so much more pressure on me to not only write more and get it finished, but also have it finished and be good. So as someone who, for them, that is their entire career, and they do that 24/7 and have that on a much bigger scale, I feel like it's more pressure for them that isn't needed, because of course they're already thinking about it. Like John Green, for example, saying that he thinks that people are not going to like his book as much as The Fault in Our Stars, and he's like, you know, that's probably gonna happen. I don't know what the point was of this video. I think I just wanted to kind of vent and get my thoughts out, so that it'll hopefully make me feel better. But if you have any thoughts on anything I've said in this video, or you think that there's something that I've missed, leave a comment down below and I'll be back with a new video soon. Bye!